talking about an audit firm, MS Rahul Associate, a CA firm, CA audit firm is auditing a company for the last 11 years as on March 2013. Okay, so already as he has been serving this particular company for the last 11 years, already the period has covered, because in no case he is supposed to, this particular firm is supposed to be associated with a period more than 10 years. So he has already served 11 years. Now, in this situation, if you really want to provide him with the opportunity of wrapping up all his activities, then you can provide him with another 3 years. So he can continue the audit up to the first AGM to be held after 3 years from the date of commencement of the act. So he can actually work in that particular company for a total period of 11 plus 3 is equal to 14 years. So you may have a very small sums like this, very small sums. I do not know that whether University of Calcutta is going to test you on this issues, but these kinds of sum can be set. And if you are studying CA, then definitely you will be having these sums maybe in different formats, maybe in MCQ or as a large format of sums, where they will actually ask you in this line that number of consecutive years for which an individual auditor has been functioning as auditor in the same company. Okay, so let us say that this number is 5 years. So when the Companies Act was coming in, the total period that the auditor was functioning in that company was 5 years. So how many more years he is going to get? 3 years. So what is the total aggregate period for which the auditor has served the company? 5 plus 3 is equal to 8 years. If it is 4 years, in that case, 4 plus 3 is equal to 7 years. If it is 3 years, then 3 plus 3 is equal to 6 years. If it is 2 years, then 2 plus 3, 5 years. If it is 1 year, then 1 plus 4, 5 years. So if you have joined a company just 1 year back or 2 years back, the commencement of this particular act, then you are not breaching any provision. You are not breaching the provision of section 139 subsection 2. But if you are associated with a company for a period more than 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, something like that, in that case, you just have to add 3 to it, and that is going to be the aggregate period of your association. So 3 years is the maximum period for which you are allowed to be associated. If you want to retire before that, it's allowed, but that is the maximum period of association. The questions may be asked to you in this line only, that what is the total maximum period the company or the individual auditor is supposed to be associated with this particular company, and you just have to add this column 1 with column 2 and you will get your answer. The same thing can be stated for an audit firm as well. So here you see that the total number of consecutive years for which an audit firm has been functioning as auditor in the same company. So if it is 10 years, 10 years means that before the commencement, the audit firm was associated for the last 10 years. So his term has already ended, but as he is going to get another 3 years, so the total period that he is going to get is 13 years. Then for 9, it will be 12 years. For 8, it will be 11 years. For 7, it will be 10 years. And then for 6, it will be 10 years. So you see that once you are crossing the limit of 6, once you are crossing the limit of 7 years, only then your total period of association is going to cross 10 consecutive years. Because below that, all the information that you can see, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, everywhere the maximum additional period of association, they may vary, and ultimately the total period that you may be associated with is going to be 10 years only. So 6 years and below, 7 years and below, there is no problem at all. But the problem may crop up in case of 8, 9 and 10. So if you are provided with a question like this, that the example that I've shown, that one particular audit firm was associated with the company for a period of last 11 years, when the act was commenced. So what is the total aggregate period for which the audit firm will be associated with the company? So your answer is going to be 11 plus 3 is equal to 14. So this is how you are going to calculate this thing. Any confusion, please let me know. Right of removal or resignation not affected. So it doesn't mean that whenever you are rotating the statutory auditor, it doesn't mean that your right to remove any particular auditor or the right of the auditor to resign from the organization, they are taken away. Okay, so at any particular point of time, you can remove any auditor, or the auditor may resign from the organization. But if you are not removing an auditor, or if the auditor is not resigning from the organization, even then the maximum period of association is 5 years for individual auditor and 10 years for an audit firm. Rotation of auditors by companies on expiry of term. Okay, so it is mentioned as per Rule 6 of Companies Audit and Auditors Rules. So in this particular section, the law states that the central government may prescribe the manner of rotation by the companies. Okay, on expiry of term. So his term has expired. So how am I exactly going to rotate the auditor? What is the process of rotation? So usually the central government will prescribe that exactly how the rotation will take place. That will be discussed under section 139 subsection 4. I will come to that later. But usually what happens, the audit committee in all those companies where audit committee is required to be constituted, they are going to recommend to the board of directors that the individual auditor or the firm who may replace the incumbent auditor on expiry of the term. So you see that the term of an individual auditor or an audit firm is about to end. So one new auditor is going to replace him or the firm. So who is going to be that firm? Who is going to be that individual auditor? That the audit committee is going to decide, and they will recommend the name to the board of directors. The board of directors should consider the recommendation of the committee or make its own recommendation in companies where audit committee is not required to be constituted for appointment of the next auditor in the AGM. Where a company has appointed two or more individuals or firm or a combination thereof as joint auditors, the company may follow the rotation of auditors in such a manner that both or all of the joint auditors do not complete their term in the same year. So you understand this part very clearly, that whenever the term of any particular auditor is about to end, then in those companies where audit committee is required to be constituted, they will provide their recommendation to the board of directors. If the board of directors like such recommendation, they will represent it in the shareholders meeting. And on the other hand, in those companies where audit committee is not required to be constituted, the board of directors themselves will recommend a name who will replace the incumbent auditor. And accordingly, the new appointment will take place. But there are certain companies where more than one auditors are appointed. By auditor, I mean individual as well as firm. Okay, there are more than one auditors are appointed. They are called joint auditors. Maybe in a particular company there are different departments, and you are appointing two different auditors to audit those two departments. So whenever you are appointing the joint auditors, this is the provision of this particular rule, that you should not appoint the joint auditors in such a way that both of them are going to end their term together. Okay, so there should be a gap of 1 or 2 years so that you don't have to appoint both the joint auditors together. So that is also the provision. Now, what are the considerations? Whenever you are going to select a new auditor, what are the considerations that you are supposed to look into? The period for which the individual or the firm has held office as auditor prior to the commencement of the act shall be taken into account for calculating the period of 5 consecutive years or 10 consecutive years, as the case may be, as I said just now. So the total period after which you are supposed to think about the rotation, they will be calculated in the manner that I have just stated before this particular slide. The incoming individual auditor or firm is not eligible if such auditor is associated with outgoing auditor or audit firm under the same network of firms. Okay, so same network money ki? Same network means that all the firms which are under the common control. Okay, so suppose you have appointed one particular auditor who is associated with Ernst and Young. Okay, and that auditor has served your company for the last 5 years, and now it is time for his rotation, and you are considering a new auditor. And you come to know that this new auditor that you are considering is also from Ernst and Young. So this is not allowed at all. So any outgoing auditor should not be associated with the incoming auditor by any way. And many a times it has also been seen, like here I have stated that both the auditors were from same firm, but it may not be so. Maybe one auditor that you are taking, that you have taken in the last term, it was from a particular audit firm, maybe a small partnership firm, and now you are considering another incoming auditor who is from a different audit firm. But when you try to understand it, when you actually dig deep into it, you will find out that both these firms are controlled by a unified control. One particular person is controlling both the firms. One partner is common in both the firms. So if you find information like that, then this incoming auditor should not be considered for replacing the outgoing auditor. A break in the term for a continuous period of 5 years shall be considered as fulfilling the requirement of rotation. What do I mean by this? Suppose once you have appointed an auditor for a period of 5 years, the auditor has taken a break for maybe 6 months or maybe 12 months or maybe 18 months. He has taken a break and he has given his replacement who has replaced him. So it doesn't mean that just because he has taken the break, his total period of engagement is going to increase by that break period. It is not going to happen. It will be considered within that 5 years period. So whether you have taken the break or not, it doesn't matter, but ultimately the total period should be limited within 5 years. If a partner who is in charge of an audit firm and also certifies the financial statements of the company retires from the state firm and joins another firm, such other firm will also be ineligible to be appointed for a period of 5 years. What do I mean by this? It means that suppose once the term of rotation of your current auditor is ending and you are considering that who is going to be your incoming auditor, so you have come across one particular partner from an audit firm who actually certifies the financial statement of your company. Okay, so he is also a partner of your audit firm, from the firm in which from which you have taken the auditor for doing your audit in the current term. And this particular partner, he has also certified the financial statement of the company. Now whenever you are going to consider that whether this particular partner is going to be considered for the purpose of incoming auditor, in that case you will have to look into that whether this partner has retired from the firm or not. So your answer is yes, the partner has retired from the state firm, but he has joined another firm. So even in that situation, as he was associated with the firm who was supposed to certify the financial statement of the company, he will also be ineligible to be appointed for a period of 5 years. So suppose I have appointed one audit firm. From that firm, I had one partner who was certifying my financial statement. Now the term of this particular audit partner has ended, and I now have to consider appointment of a new partner. In the meantime, that another partner who was certifying my financial statement, he has left the organization, left the firm, and he joined another firm. So I may feel that as the person has left this firm and joined some other firm, I can take that particular firm as my incoming auditor. But the law states, no, you can't, because one of the partners who joined you recently, he was previously certifying your financial statement. So you are not supposed to take that firm as your incoming partner. So whenever I use the term firm, it shall include the limited liability partnership as well. So limited liability partnership as defined in LLP Act 2008. If you really want to find out, you can do that. So all the firms, they may incorporate any sole proprietorship firm or any partnership firm or any limited liability partnership firm. Everything can be considered under a firm. In fact, if you have any particular relative who is a CA and who is registered under EIRC, Eastern India Regional Council of ICI, I think all of them has a particular database. Okay, so this database incorporates the names of all the sole proprietorship firm and the partnership firms who are working right now in the eastern region of the country. Okay, so if you have anyone who is who has were privy to this kind of database, you may see this how the different firms are playing right now in the eastern region. Rotation between partners of audit firm under section 139 subsection 3. So what is meant by this? In the audit firm appointed by it, the auditing partner and his team shall be rotated at such interval as may be resolved by members, or the audit shall be conducted by more than one auditor. What do I mean by this? Suppose I am appointing an audit firm to audit my financial statement. So what is the total period of engagement, the total period of appointment for which the audit firm can be associated with my company? 10 years. Now, in this 10 years period, who exactly is going to be the auditor? That is the main question here. Because whenever I'm appointing an audit firm, Mr. A, who is an engagement partner, he can come to audit my financial statement, or Mr. B, who is also an engagement partner, he can also come to audit my financial statement. Now, uh, as per section 139 subsection 3, it is stated that exactly how the engagement partners are going to rotate uh, with each other, that will be decided by the members of the organization. So shareholders, whenever they are appointing the audit firm, only there they will mention that within this 10 years period, how many years are going to be audited by Mr. A and what is the number of years which is to be audited by Mr. B. So usually this is a 5-year period that Mr. A will come, they will actually audit the financial statement for 5 years. The term has not yet ended. In the next term, in the next 5 years period, Mr. B will come from the same firm and they will now continue the audit. So you have to take, it is a condition that you have to take more than one auditor. One auditor cannot serve your organization for the entire 10-year period. Okay, there has to be two auditors minimum. But how these two auditors are to be appointed, what should be the yearly allocation of an audit, that will be decided by the members in the annual general meeting. Then subsequent auditor of government company. So far we have discussed subsequent auditor in non-government company and the provision with respect to rotation in non-government company. These are the 2 points with respect to appointment is over. Now we are going to start with our next topic, subsequent auditor of government company under section 139 subsection 5. So according to this subsection, Comptroller and Auditor General of India, they should appoint a duly qualified auditor in a government company in respect of a financial year. You understand one thing here, that whenever I say duly qualified auditor, what is the meaning of this? Usually, in a single sentence, you can say that the person who is supposed to be appointed should be a chartered accountant. Okay, in simple sentence you can say this, but there are certain other qualification criteria that must be fulfilled by the auditor, as well as there are also some other disqualification criteria That should also be fulfilled by the auditor. Only then they will be appointed by CAG. So whenever the CAG is appointing an auditor to audit the financial statements of a government company, they appoint it for 1 financial year. You mind this, that here the concept of 5 years appointment is not there. Once they're appointing a particular auditor, they are appointed for 1 financial year, a financial year. Okay. The provision of this subsection is applicable for the government companies or any other companies is owned or controlled holding more than 551% of the paid up share capital, directly or indirectly by the central government or any other state government or governments, or partly by the central government and partly by one or more state governments, and includes a subsidiary of a government company. So these are the definition of government company. Okay, so all these issues, all these provisions must be fulfilled if you really want to categorize one company as a government company. And in the government company, this is how the auditors are appointed. Time limit for appointment. The appointment is to be made within a period of 180 days from the commencement of the financial year. So a financial year commences from 1st April of any particular year. So from that date, within 180 days, 180 days means 6 months. Okay, technically 6 months, a bit less or a bit more. So within 180 days, you have to appoint the auditor. Who will appoint the auditor? Comptroller and Auditor General of India. What is the tenure of appointment? The auditor should hold the office till the conclusion of the AGM. So the AGM in which the auditors are appointed, okay, by CAG, they are not appointed in the AGM. In fact, members, they do not have any role to play in the appointment of the auditors. But the AGM that I have mentioned is to just mention the date, just to mention the time period for which they are supposed to be associated. So once they are appointed by the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, from that date to the conclusion of the next AGM, this auditor is going to serve the government company. Then first auditor of non-government company. So I hope you have understood the concept of appointment of subsequent auditor in a government company. Now we are talking about first auditor of non-government company under section 139 subsection 6. So as I already have mentioned that the first auditor of a company other than a government company should be appointed by board of directors. Okay, because at that particular point of time when the company has received their certificate of incorporation but no AGM has taken place yet, so shareholders have no role to play in appointment of the auditors. So who will appoint them? The board of directors will take the responsibility of such appointment. The MD of P Limited wants to appoint CA Taposh as the first auditor of the company. However, he is not eligible to do so under section 139 subsection 6 since the BOD appoints the first auditor of the company. So the first auditor should always be appointed by the board of directors by holding a board of directors meeting and by passing a resolution at the board of directors meeting. If any particular director, that may be the managing director of the company, even if he wants to appoint a person as the first auditor of the company at his own sweet will, that is not allowed. Okay. Time limit for appointment. Within how many days this first auditor should be appointed? The appointment is to be made within 30 days from the date of registration of the company. Okay, 30 days from the date of registration of the company. You please minutely look at all these points because a lot of questions, a lot of numerical problems can be set from these aspects. So from the date of registration, within 30 days, appointment of the first auditor is to be made. Consequences of failure of BOD. So if the BOD fails to appoint any first auditor within 30 days, then they should inform the members of the company who should within 90 days appoint such auditor at an extraordinary general meeting. So you try to understand this whole scenario. Company is getting registered. Within 30 days, BOD should appoint the first auditor. If the BOD is successful in appointing the first auditor, no problem. But if the BOD fails to appoint the first auditor, from that date to another 90 days, the shareholders are supposed to appoint the first auditor of the company by holding an extraordinary general meeting. You must understand one thing, that AGM will take place only after 15 months, 12 months plus additional 3 months. Um, so before that, if you really want to hold an AGM, if you really want to hold a general meeting, it cannot be annual general meeting. It has to be extraordinary general meeting. So in that extraordinary general meeting, you can appoint the first auditor of the company who will serve till the end of the first AGM. Tenure of the auditor. The auditor should hold the office till the conclusion of the first AGM, already stated. Then first auditor of government company under section 139 subsection 7. The provision is not that difficult. It's almost similar to that of the subsequent auditor in case of a government company. So here it is mentioned that Comptroller and Auditor General of India, they should appoint the first auditor in a government company. Quite obvious, because as I said that be it the first auditor, be it the subsequent auditor, they will be appointed by the CAG. Time limit for appointment. What should be the time limit within which the first auditor should be appointed? Appointment should be made within 60 days from the date of registration of the company. So from the date of registration, another 60 days, the auditors should be appointed by the CAG. Okay. Then consequences of failure of CAG. Suppose CAG failed to appoint the first auditor within 60 days. Okay, because one thing that you must understand, be it a non-government company or a government company, after the registration, so many days should not pass before you appoint the first auditor. Because the first auditor's job would be to check the financial statement at in the initial go. So if the Comptroller and Auditor General, they have failed to appoint the first auditor within 60 days, then the board of directors of that particular company should appoint such director, such auditor within the next 30 days. If the BOD also fails to appoint such auditor within the next 30 days, then it should inform the shareholders who should appoint such auditor within the 60 days at an EGM. So you understand the whole scene now here, that first, from the date of registration, Comptroller and Auditor General should appoint the first auditor within 60 days. CAG failed to do so. Then CAG should inform the board of directors of the company. The board of directors should appoint the first auditor within the next 30 days. The board also failed to appoint the auditor within next 30 days. What they should do? They should inform the matter to the shareholders of the company, who should appoint the first auditor of the company within 60 days by holding an extraordinary general meeting. So this is the entire structure in which appointment of first auditor is to be made in a government company. One example that I have given over here, that the board of director of India P Limited, a government company, appointed its first auditor within 60 days of its registration. However, the appointment should have been made by Comptroller and Auditor General of India under section 139 subsection 7. So the appointment by the BOD is null and void. So at first, the BOD should not take part in the appointment of the first auditor. They will take part only if the CAG fails to do so within 60 days. Only then the BOD will take part. If the BOD is too smart to get into the appointment procedure in the initial stage, then the appointment is going to be null and void. Tenure of the auditor. What is the tenure? The auditor should hold the office till the conclusion of the first AGM. So that is the period, the first year, that the auditor is to be appointed in the company. Filling of casual vacancy under section 139 subsection 8. I hope I have explained to you the meaning of casual vacancy. Casual vacancy means that when you have appointed an auditor, be it in a non-government company or maybe in a government company, they are appointed for a particular term, right? So if you are appointing the first auditor, the term is always 1 year. If you are appointing the subsequent auditor in case of government company, the term is once again 1 year. But if you are appointing the auditor in case of non-government company, subsequent auditor in case of non-government company, the term is 5 years. The casual vacancy means that when the auditor is serving their term, if due to any major event, they have to vacate their office suddenly. Like they are not removed, they are not resigning, but they had to vacate their office. What could be the situation? Maybe the auditor, while he was in engagement, he died, or he has gone insane, or there were some other disqualification criteria that we will mention. Some of these disqualification criteria they have cropped up. So because of which the auditor has to abruptly vacate his office. So already the office of the auditor is vacated, but we need to do his work. So who will be doing his work? So this vacancy, which is created due to abrupt vacation by the auditor, is called casual vacancy. So the law states that if there is any casual vacancy within the organization, how it should be filled up. Okay. So in case of non-government company, the casual vacancy is to be filled up by the board of directors, and the shareholders should approve it if this particular casual vacancy is due to resignation. Suppose the auditor has resigned from the organization very abruptly, and in order to fill up his place, the board of director has appointed a new person, a new auditor. Then uh, the shareholders should approve such appointment. The reason? The reason is that suppose the BOD means the management, they are constantly providing some pressure on the auditor. They were not letting them work properly. So the auditor, when he was not getting any cooperation from the management, because I think you will agree with me that the auditors will always need some cooperation from the management's end. But if the auditor is not getting any cooperation from the management, then the auditor will have to resign from the organization by citing the appropriate reason that why he is resigning from the organization, but he will ultimately resign. So when the auditor is resigning from the organization, this will actually create casual vacancy, and the board of directors are supposed to fill up that vacancy. So when the board of directors are filling up the vacancy, they will always like to appoint someone whom they can control. Okay, that's the common phenomena. That's the common psychology. That I was putting pressure on you because I know that you are an honest person. So I was putting a pressure on you. Not being able to bear my pressure, you had to resign. And when you resigned, there was a vacancy. And now I am bringing my own person to fill up that vacancy. So when any casual vacancy is filled up by the board of directors because of any resignation by the auditor, then shareholders must approve it, because ultimately the shareholders are the appointing authority of the auditors. So if something like that is going on within the company interaction, then the shareholders, you should keep the shareholders in loop. But ultimately what happens, that shareholders who are very much unaware about the whole fiasco, they may not understand that what is going on within the company structure, because they are all outsiders. They are not part of the company management. Maybe a small portion of the shareholders holding the majority stake, they are participating in the company management, but otherwise, most of the shareholders, especially the retail investors, retail shareholders, they are all outsiders to the organization. So they will do what the BOD will ask them to do. So though our Companies Act has this provision that we need to get approval from the shareholders whenever we are coming up with any such decision, but ultimately it is of no use. Still, as the law states it, we have to understand that if the casual vacancy is created due to resignation of the auditor, and if it is filled up by the BOD, then we need to have approval from the shareholders. And in case of government company, any casual vacancy is to be filled up by controller and auditor general. So you understand one thing, that once you see the term government company, you will understand that all the activities with respect to their appointment should be done by the CAG only. There is no other exception. So in case of non-government company, the casual vacancy should be filled up by the board of directors within 30 days. Okay, so that is the maximum period within which you have to fill it up. If the casual vacancy is due to the resignation by an auditor, the appointment should also be approved by the company at AGM within 3 months of the recommendation of the board of directors, and he shall hold the office till the conclusion of the next AGM. So in the next AGM, a fresh auditor will be appointed, but till then, the new auditor who is appointed by the BOT will be appointed in the company. So you please remember this time periods, that the casual vacancy is to be filled up by the BOT within 30 days, and uh, once the BOT is recommending the name of the auditor, it should be approved by the shareholders within 3 months. Okay, by holding a separate meeting. So casual vacancy is a vacancy created due to death, resignation, dissolution of the audit firm. There can be many reasons. And in case of government company or government owned or controlled company, casual vacancies to be filled up by the controller and auditor general within 30 days. If CAG fails to fill the vacancy within 30 days, the BOD should do it within the next 30 days. The first 30 days, you should fill up the vacancy. You fail to do so, the next 30 days, the BOD should do it. Reappointment of auditor under section 139, subsection 9. I have 3 more slides, so I have a plan to complete them. So, reappointment of auditor. In what situation an auditor whose term is about to end is to be reappointed? First, he is not disqualified for reappointment. Second, he has not given the company a notice in writing of his unwillingness to be reappointed. And third, a special resolution has not been passed at that meeting, appointing some other auditor or providing expressly that he shall not be reappointed. So these are the 3 situations in which a retiring auditor or the auditor whose term has just ended will be reappointed in the same company. So the first condition is that he is not disqualified for reappointment. Okay, first. Second, he has not given the company any notice that no, I don't want to be an auditor of the company anymore. Third, a new auditor has been taken into consideration and a new auditor will be appointed in his place. And fourth, in that particular meeting where the reappointment is supposed to take place, in that meeting it has been expressly stated that that auditor, that old auditor, is not to be reappointed. Then consequences of failure to appoint or reappointment of auditor in AGM. Suppose you could not appoint or reappoint any auditor in the annual general meeting. Under section 139 subsection 10, it is stated that if no auditor is appointed or reappointed in an AGM, the existing auditor should continue to be the auditor of the company. Okay, so those that auditor who has been serving the company, he will continue to serve it till the new auditor is appointed. And finally, the last slide, recommendation of audit committee under section 139 subsection 11. I already have stated this. If the company is required to constitute audit committee under section 177, all appointments and filling of a casual vacancy of an auditor should be made after taking into account the recommendation of such committee. So I already stated this, that all the companies in which audit committee is required to be constituted under section 177. So over there, the audit committee should take the first step. They should recommend it, and after that, if the BOD likes it, they will forward it to the shareholders. So with this, I end my discussion on appointment of auditors. So I just would like to invite questions from you. I guess you should have questions, but if you don't, in that case, I'm really lucky to have this excellent batch. কারো কোনো প্রশ্ন থাকলে করতে পারো। Any query, anyone? কারো কোনো প্রশ্ন আছে?
নো স্যার।
সব বুঝতে পেরে গেছো? We'll see in the test. Okay, your attendance is taken, so you may leave now. Thank you.